Mia sat at the grand piano, her small fingers gently resting on the cool, white keys. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of people talking. Mia, only 8 years old, was dressed in a navy blue dress that flowed just above her knees. Her black hair was neatly tied into 2 little buns, and she wore bright blue sunglasses, even though the room was dim. It wasn't because she thought she looked cool. She couldn't see it all. She had never seen anything in her life. The sunglasses were just a part of who she was, her way of embracing the world without sight. She was in the middle of a music session, surrounded by a few other children and their parents. The others had been playing for a while, some with confidence, others with hesitation. Mia, however, was calm. She didn't feel the nerves the others did. Music wasn't about seeing. It was about feeling, hearing, and understanding. To Mia, each note was like a message, a conversation with the world she couldn't see. Across from her stood an older man, Mr. Voss. His hair was slicked back, his expression stern. Dressed in a black tailcoat and a white shirt, he seemed out of place in the room of young, hopeful musicians. He had been watching Mia since she first sat down at the piano. The others around her glanced at each other, and some even whispered, though Mia couldn't hear the words. Mr. Voss was known for his sharp eyes and even sharper opinions. He had seen many pianists come and go, and though he was impressed with some, he wasn't easily moved. Now, standing before Mia, his frustration was clear. His brows furrowed as he raised one finger and pointed directly at her. "You can't possibly play," he said, his voice rising with each word. "You're blind. How are you supposed to know the notes? How can you play a piece of music if you can't even see the keys?" His words were harsh, and they stung, even though Mia couldn't see the anger on his face. She could feel the tension in the air, the way the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her to respond. The other children shifted uncomfortably, and a few parents exchanged glances. Some of them agreed with Mr. Voss. After all, how could a blind child play the piano? It didn't seem possible. It wasn't the first time Mia had heard such doubts, but it never bothered her. She didn't need to see the keys to play. She didn't need to see anything at all to feel the music in her soul. Mia's small fingers slowly moved over the piano keys, her hands dancing over the white and black with a confidence that didn't match the heavy atmosphere around her. The others waited in silence, some still unsure, others curious. Mia closed her eyes beneath the blue sunglasses and let the music fill her, each note a language she knew better than any spoken word. Mr. Voss stood there, arms crossed, still skeptical. But Mia wasn't concerned with him. She was only concerned with one thing: the music. Mia's fingers hovered over the piano keys, her mind focused on the music she could feel deep inside. The room was silent, every person there holding their breath, waiting for her to begin. Her fingers found their place, and without hesitation, she pressed down on the first note. A soft, clear sound filled the air, followed by another and another. Each note was gentle but confident, a quiet promise that the music was alive within her. The older man, Mr. Voss, still stood in front of her, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her hands. His expression remained skeptical, but there was something else in his gaze now: curiosity. Mia, however, didn't notice. She was lost in the rhythm, in the movement of her hands as they danced across the keys. She could feel the piano, its smooth surface under her fingertips, the weight of each note she played. To her, it was like telling a story without words but full of meaning. The other children in the room, who had been talking and laughing before, now watched in stunned silence. Some of them leaned forward, unsure of what to expect. They had seen musicians play before, but they had never seen someone like Mia. Her calmness was unlike anything they had witnessed in their short lives. They had always been told that sight was necessary to play music, that without the ability to see, one could not master the piano. But Mia was proving them wrong, note by note. As the song continued, her fingers seemed to glide over the keys, playing with a grace that was almost magical. It wasn't the perfection that people might expect from a trained pianist, but there was something raw and powerful in the way she played. Every note was a reflection of her heart, a voice she could not speak, but could express through music. The rhythm was steady, and the melody was beautiful, flowing through the air like a soft breeze. Mr. Voss was no longer speaking, no longer pointing. He watched with a mixture of disbelief and awe. He had been so sure that Mia wouldn't be able to play, so convinced that her blindness would stop her from creating anything beautiful. But now, as he listened to her, the reality of her talent was beginning to sink in. As the last notes of the song began to fade, Mia's hands lingered for just a moment on the keys. The room was so quiet, so still, that it seemed as if time itself had stopped. The children and parents around her were frozen in place, all of them too stunned to speak. Mr. Voss was the first to break the silence. He stepped forward, his face softening, and for the first time, he spoke without any hint of doubt in his voice. "That was incredible," he said, his voice low but filled with respect. Mia, still sitting with her hands on the keys, smiled faintly, though she couldn't see him. It didn't matter. The music had spoken for her, and that was all that mattered. The applause came slowly at first, a few hesitant claps, but then it grew, louder and more confident. Everyone in the room realized they had witnessed something special, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about music. And for Mia, it was just the beginning. The applause slowly faded, but the feeling in the room remained. Mia sat still, her hands resting lightly on the piano keys. She didn't expect the clapping, and it made her feel a bit uncomfortable. She wasn't used to all this attention. To her, the music was simply a part of who she was, a way of expressing everything she couldn't see, but could feel deeply. It was a language that didn't need words. Mr. Voss, still standing in front of her, was silent for a moment, his hands resting at his sides. He stared at the piano for a while, as though trying to understand what he had just witnessed. He had thought the music session was just a formality, a way to show the young musicians how to improve. But what he had seen from Mia wasn't something he could teach. It wasn't something anyone could teach. It was pure talent, a gift. "You have a gift," Mr. Voss finally said, his voice softer than before. "I didn't expect this at all." He paused, then added, "How long have you been playing?" Mia, who had been listening carefully to the sound of his voice, answered without hesitation. "I've been playing for as long as I can remember," she said. "I don't need to see the piano to know how it feels. The keys talk to me." There was a quiet moment as everyone absorbed her words. For some, it was hard to imagine how she could feel the music without seeing the notes. But for Mia, it was simple. The piano was a part of her world. It wasn't about the black and white keys. It was about the sound they made when her fingers touched them. Each note was like a heartbeat, a message, a way for her to connect with the world in a way words could not. The other children in the room, who had been watching in awe, now started to gather around her. They were curious, amazed, and unsure of what to say. Some of them whispered to each other, wondering how it was even possible for someone to play like that without seeing. Maya didn't mind the whispers. She had gotten used to people talking about her, not that it bothered her much. She knew what she could do, and that was enough for her. As the session continued, Mr. Voss moved to the front of the room and turned to the other students. "Let this be a lesson to all of you," he said, his voice clear and commanding. "Mia has shown us something very important today. It's not about seeing the notes or reading the music. It's about feeling it. Music is something you carry with you, no matter who you are, or what you can or can't see. Mia has reminded us of that." The other students nodded, and some even smiled at Mia. They had come to realize that what they had thought was impossible wasn't impossible at all. Maybe, just maybe, there was a lot more to music than they had ever imagined. Mia smiled shyly, her hands resting in her lap now. She didn't need to hear the applause or see the amazed faces. She already knew she had made a difference, and that was enough. The music had spoken for her, and that was all that mattered. As the session came to a close, Mia remained by the piano, her fingers lightly brushing over the keys. The room was filled with a soft murmur of voices as the other children and their parents talked excitedly about what they had just witnessed. Mia didn't understand the full extent of the admiration around her, but she could feel the change in the air. People were no longer doubting her. They were impressed, even inspired, and that was enough for her. Mr. Voss, who had been standing at the front of the room, began to walk over to her. His earlier stern expression had softened, and there was a hint of respect in his eyes. He stopped in front of the piano and smiled, though it was a small, thoughtful smile. "Mia, that was extraordinary," he said quietly. "I've seen many pianists in my time, but you've done something special today." Mia didn't respond right away. She had heard compliments before, but they always made her feel a bit awkward. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. For her, playing the piano was just what she did. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about connecting with the music and expressing what words could not. "Thank you," she said softly, her hands still resting on the piano. Her voice was calm and steady, though there was a hint of shyness in it. Mr. Voss nodded. "You should be proud of yourself. The way you feel the music, it's not something many people understand. It's not something you can learn. It's a gift." He paused for a moment, then continued. "I think it's time you start sharing that gift with more people." At his words, Mia looked up at him. She couldn't see his face, but she could sense the seriousness in his tone. She had always played the piano for herself, for her own peace and expression. The thought of sharing her music with the world felt strange. But as she thought about it, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it was time to let others hear what she could do. "Maybe," Mia said, her voice trailing off as she thought about it. "But I only want to play when I feel ready." Mr. Voss smiled again, a warm and understanding smile. "Of course. It's your gift, Mia. You get to decide when and how to share it." He glanced around the room, where the other children were starting to pack up their things. "But don't forget, the world is full of people who would love to hear what you can do." The words echoed in Mia's mind as she stood up from the piano bench. The other children were gathering their sheet music and instruments, some chatting excitedly about the next session. Mia felt a sense of calm settle over her. She didn't need to rush or force anything. When the time was right, she would share her music in her own way. She was in no hurry. The music was always there, waiting for her whenever she was ready. As the room began to empty, Mia's mom came over to her, smiling proudly. "You did amazing," she said, giving Mia a gentle hug. Mia smiled back, her heart full but content. She had shown them all what she was capable of, and that was enough for today. The rest could come later. The days after the music session passed by quietly, but things were different for Mia. Word had spread about the little girl who played the piano without ever seeing the keys. Some people found it hard to believe, while others were in awe of her ability. Mia's life, which had once been simple and peaceful, was now full of small changes. People started to recognize her, and more often than not, someone would stop her and ask if she was the girl who had played the piano. She didn't mind the attention too much. After all, she didn't understand the full weight of it. To Mia, playing the piano was just what she did. It wasn't about fame or praise, but it was still strange to see how much of an impact her music had on others. She had always known the music was special, but she didn't expect it to move so many people. One afternoon, a local news station contacted Mia's mom. They had seen the video of her performance at the music workshop, and they wanted to do a segment on her. Mia wasn't sure what to think. She had never been on television before, and the idea of sitting in front of a camera made her feel nervous. But her mom encouraged her, reminding her that this was a chance to share her music with even more people. When the day of the interview arrived, Mia felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. The crew was setting up, and there were lights everywhere, making the room feel brighter than it usually was. Mia sat on a couch, her hands folded in her lap, trying to relax. Her mom was sitting beside her, offering quiet reassurance. The host of the show was a friendly woman with a bright smile. "Mia, thank you so much for joining us today," she said. "I've heard so much about your amazing piano performance. How does it feel to know that your music has touched so many people?" Mia shifted in her seat, feeling the spotlight on her. She wasn't used to talking about her music. She began, taking a deep breath. "I don't really think about how it affects other people. I just play because it's what I love to do. It's like I feel the music inside me, and it helps me say things I can't say with words." The host nodded, clearly moved by her answer. "That's beautiful, Mia. I think that's what makes your music so special. It comes from your heart." She turned to the camera and added, "And for all of you watching, I think we all have something to learn from Mia's story." After the interview, Mia felt a little lighter. She had shared her thoughts, and it wasn't so scary after all. When the camera crew packed up and left, she and her mom stood up, ready to head home. Mia didn't feel like she had become famous, but she did feel proud of herself for sharing something so important to her. As they walked out of the studio, Mia thought about how her life had changed. It was a little strange to be recognized, but she was okay with it. She knew that no matter what happened, she would always have the piano and the music to express herself, and that was enough. As the weeks passed, Mia's life seemed to take on a new rhythm. She was no longer just the quiet girl who played the piano at home. Now she was known in the community, and her story had spread beyond the small town. People were curious about her, and more invitations came for her to play. At first, she was unsure about performing in front of larger audiences, but her mom was always there to encourage her, reminding her that it was okay to take things one step at a time. One afternoon, Mia was invited to play at a local school. It was a small gathering, just a few students and their teachers, but to Mia, it felt like a big deal. She wasn't nervous exactly, but she was still unsure of how the performance would go. She had gotten used to playing alone in her room or in front of a small group, but this was different. The thought of so many eyes watching her made her stomach flutter. Her mom drove her to the school that day, and as they parked in the lot, Mia could feel her nerves growing. "Mom, what if they don't like my music?" she asked quietly. Her mom smiled and reached over to squeeze her hand. "Mia, it's not about whether they like it or not. It's about you sharing your gift with them. Just play from your heart, and that's all that matters." Mia nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. As they entered the school, she could hear the chatter of students and the sounds of doors opening and closing. The small room where she would perform was already set up, with a single piano placed at the front. The students were seated, chatting excitedly, and when they saw her walk in, they all fell silent. Mia stood at the door for a moment, feeling the weight of their attention. She closed her eyes behind her sunglasses and took another deep breath. The music was always there inside her, ready to come out. She walked to the piano and sat down, her fingers hovering just above the keys. She felt the coolness of the white keys beneath her fingers and the familiar warmth of the black ones. The silence in the room stretched for a moment before she began to play. Slowly, at first her hands glided over the keys, finding their place in the music. The first note rang out, clear and pure, and the rest of the melody followed. It was a soft, gentle song, one that felt like a conversation with the world, the kind of music that didn't need words to be understood. As the music filled the room, Mia began to lose herself in it, just like she always did. She didn't think about the audience, or the pressure, or whether they were watching. All that mattered was the piano and the rhythm of her fingers. She felt the music, and that was enough. When the song ended, there was a brief silence, and then the room erupted into applause. Mia's heart raced, but she smiled, knowing that she had shared something special with them. The students were clapping enthusiastically, and some of them even stood up to cheer. Mia felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet pride that settled over her. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about sharing something real. After the performance, the students crowded around her, asking questions and complimenting her music. Mia listened quietly, smiling and nodding in response. She didn't need to say much. The music had already spoken for her. The following week, Maya received an unexpected letter. It was from a music school in a nearby city, and they wanted to offer her a scholarship to study with some of the best pianists in the country. Her mom showed her the letter, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. It was hard to believe, as if it were a dream. The thought of moving to a new place, leaving behind everything she knew, felt both exciting and frightening at the same time. "Mom, do you think I'm ready for this?" Mia asked quietly. "It seems so big. I've never done anything like this before." Her mom smiled and sat down next to her. "Mia, I think you've shown more courage than most people ever do in their lives. It's okay to feel unsure, but this is a chance to grow, to learn more about your music. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." Mia held the letter in her hands, feeling the weight of it. The music school was known for helping young musicians discover their true potential, and the idea of studying there excited her. But there was a part of her that didn't want to leave home, her piano, and the familiar faces of the people who had supported her from the beginning. She had always played music because it was her way of connecting with the world, but now it seemed like the world was offering her a chance to go even further. After a few days of thinking, Mia finally made up her mind. She decided to take the opportunity, but she wasn't sure exactly what to expect. She had played in front of audiences before, but this was different. This was a whole new world, with new people, new teachers, and new challenges. Still, her heart told her that it was the right thing to do. On the day she was set to leave, the house was filled with a mixture of excitement and sadness. Her mom packed her bags, making sure she had everything she needed, while Mia sat on the couch, thinking about the next chapter of her life. She was nervous, yes, but there was also a quiet excitement bubbling inside her. She knew that music was something she couldn't escape, something that would always be with her. "Are you ready, Mia?" her mom asked, standing in the doorway. Mia looked up, her heart racing, but she nodded. "I think so." The drive to the music school was long, and as they passed through unfamiliar streets, Mia's mind raced with thoughts of the future. When they finally arrived, the school looked grand and impressive, with towering buildings and busy students rushing about. It felt like a place where dreams could come true, and that made Mia both thrilled and a little nervous. As they walked inside, she felt a mix of awe and uncertainty. This was it, the place where her music would grow even stronger, where she could push herself further than she ever had before. But she also knew that the journey wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of doubt, challenges to overcome, and days when the music didn't come as easily as it usually did. But Mia was ready. She wasn't just playing the piano anymore. She was on a journey to find out how far her music could go. And that journey, she knew, was only just beginning. The first few days at the music school were a whirlwind for Mia. Everything was new. The teachers, the students, the routines. There were so many different instruments being played around her, so many people who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Mia often felt like an outsider, unsure of where she fit in. She had always played music from her heart, but now she had to learn to play in ways she had never imagined before. Her first class was a group piano session, and the teacher, Mr. Harrison, was an experienced pianist who had taught many students. He was kind but firm, and Mia could sense his expectations. As they sat down at the pianos, he asked each student to play a simple scale. Mia's hands were shaky at first, but she focused and played it smoothly. She wasn't used to playing scales like this. She had always played songs that she felt in her soul, but she could see the importance of learning the basics. After everyone had finished, Mr. Harrison looked around the room. "You all have potential," he said, his voice strong. "But potential is just the start. To really grow, you have to be willing to learn and push past what you think you already know." Mia nodded, her hands resting on her lap. She had always trusted her instincts when it came to music, but now she realized that there was so much more to learn. She was excited, but also a little scared. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she didn't fit in? The days that followed were filled with lessons, practices, and small moments of doubt. But Mia kept playing. Every time she sat at the piano, she felt a little more confident. She was surrounded by students who were all talented in their own ways, but she began to understand that everyone had their own path to follow. Some students played with incredible skill, while others had a natural gift for expressing emotion through music. Mia didn't mind if she wasn't the best player in the room. She knew that her music came from a different place, one that was deeply personal. Soon, the other students started to notice Mia's unique way of playing. They asked her how she could feel the music so deeply, even though she couldn't see the notes. Mia smiled and explained that it wasn't about seeing the music, it was about listening with her heart. It was about the connection she felt with every note and every chord. One afternoon, after a particularly long lesson, Mia sat at the piano alone. The room was quiet, and the only sound was the soft echo of her fingers touching the keys. She played a piece she had composed herself, a song that had always been close to her heart. As her fingers moved over the keys, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. This was her moment, her space, where she could express everything that words could not. When she finished playing, Mia sat still for a moment, her hands resting on the piano. She had made it here, to this school, this place of learning and growth. And though the journey ahead wouldn't always be easy, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. As she left the room, her heart felt light. The road ahead was long, and there would be challenges, but she was ready. After all, she had already learned the most important lesson of all. Music was about more than just the notes. It was about the feeling behind them, and that was something no one could take away from her.